Good evening, and welcome to the July 9th, 2014 work session of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining. Please join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Just a couple of announcements. Well, one announcement from me before we start, and then others may have announcements. On Friday, July 11th, please join us for an evening of music and the fireworks that were postponed from July 3rd, and food and fun for the entire family at the waterfront parks next to the Ossining train station. There'll be multiple bands and activities for children, as well as the food and fireworks. The music will begin at 7:30, the fireworks at 9:15, and the music will resume at 9:45. The bands are the Dirty Stay Out Skifflers, playing a Pete Seeger tribute, Jigsaw, a funky pop rock and R&B influenced by Dixieland swing, blues, jazz, rock and roll, country, and hip hop. That should be interesting. I don't know how they do that in a 50-minute set, but Silver or Lead, thank you, Ossining's hottest cover band, playing a mix of rock, funk, and soul. Bring the family, blankets, chairs, dinner, or you'll be able to buy dinner in the circle in front of the Ossining Boat and Canoe Club, where Ossining vendors will be setting up food tables. Please, no alcohol, and make sure that if you're bringing children, which I encourage you to do, that they are safe and you are watching over them, young children. Anyone else?
Yes. I do actually have an update on Energize Ossining. If you are looking for them online, they have a new web address. It is ossining.energizeny.org. The website has been updated, and that is a reflection of the great success of this program, which was, of course, the first big initiative by the Northern Westchester Energy Action Consortium, which I'll have more to speak on later during our liaison reports. And it's been a huge success and is now becoming more available more broadly in New York State. So if you just look up energizeny.org, you'll find it too, or search for the Energize New York program. And I want to invite everyone to join us next Thursday, July 17th at 6:30 at the Ossining Public Library. It'll be our July offering for the Ossining Documentary and Discussion Series. As always, the screening is free. We start at 6:30 with the film and follow that with a panel discussion. We've talked about many different subjects, and this one's a little different, and it's going to be a really interesting conversation, and I hope people of a lot of perspectives and concerns come out. The topic is gun violence. It's a documentary. The subject of it is one of the survivors of the Virginia Tech shooting, and our panel is a combination of a woman who's the head of Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, as well as candidate for New York State Senate in the 40th Senate District, Justin Wagner, just north of us, and Benjamin Rosenshine, who is he owns Blue Line Tactical and Police Supply in Elmsford. So it's a broad range of perspectives on the panel, and I hope that's also the case for a thoughtful discussion with the community. That's 6:30 next Thursday, July 17th at the library. Thanks.
Anyone else? Nothing. Richard?
Thank you. The first item on the agenda for the work session this evening is a discussion. The topic is on 200 Main Street. I just thought, with respect to this item, it might be helpful, hopefully, to those that are not necessarily in the audience, but that aren't as familiar with this property as all of us in this room are, I'm sure. So I want to speak a little bit about 200 Main Street. 200 Main Street is the former Bank for Savings building located at the intersection of Route 9 and Main Street in the village of Ossining. It was acquired by the village over 10 years ago. It was donated to the village, and at that point in time, it was thought that it could be used potentially for some recreational adjunct to the community center or some other appropriate use as deemed by the village board at the time. Since that time, the village has done really only nominal repairs to the building, as for among other reasons, no municipal purpose has been identified during that time that would justify the expense of rehabilitation to that property on behalf of the village. Over the term, several requests for proposals were sent out to encourage developers to come to the village and offer their vision and their plan or their wish for the building. Requests for proposals are generally sent out, and they invite people to come back and based on the vision that's set forth by the village board, you're looking for a response in terms of what people might be able to or think that they would like to do for the building. This process has been gone through several times, and preferred developer status has also been granted with respect to this property on several occasions, as it has with other things such as the former DPW property that was owned by the village, and it was also done for the We Can Do It parcel. Preferred developer status grants an interested party an opportunity, a time period, which is generally anywhere from 60 to 90 days and generally 75 days. It gives an interested party time to professionally inspect the property, try to analyze what issues there are with respect to the property, and to determine further interest, whether they would like to actually go forward to the next phase, which would be the contract signing and going through all the processes that lead up to the closing and the purchase of the building. The preferred developer status also protects a potential purchaser during this look-see period so that they're not spending significant funds and personal time investigating this building while the terms of sale are being negotiated with a third party. So it gives generally a 75 to 90-day period for people to give a real hard look. We see what the building looks like from the outside. We know that that's problems inside. But until you actually get in there, that building or any other one, you don't really know what the actual situation is, and you're not ultimately able to come to your bottom line business plan until you actually know what you're dealing with outside of a generic sense. So that process has been followed several times, as I said, with many properties, including this one. It's been done several times, and at the end of the day, even after that status was granted, it never proceeded to an actual sale. So for whatever reason, I'm sure every different entity has their own reason, no one deemed it appropriate to go forward with the transaction. It's the same process that the Village of Ossining went through and successfully completed on the We Can Do It lot in the middle of Main Street. It's now being redeveloped by the Stagg Group. And that parcel, too, went through many, many attempts, many discussions, many RFPs, and several preferred developed status. So, as I said, although several expressed interest in 200 Main Street, for various reasons, no one went to the RFP to the next step of actually inspecting the premises and moving towards the negotiation of terms and conditions, which normally takes place during the preferred developer status. If someone is interested, at the same time, it's like a parallel path. They're negotiating the terms of a term sheet and ultimately, could result in a contract of sale, which is what took place on We Can Do It. This particular time, 3 independent and very different proposals were submitted for the future use of the building for board consideration. An RFP has been issued for this property on at least one occasion. No RFP has been issued recently. This was not in response to a request for proposal, but it was 3 independent groups coming forward and saying they would be interested basically in receiving preferred developer status. That's exactly what they're looking for at this time, for that status in order to take the next step of examination of the property with the protection of non-interference from a third party. The details of each proposal that is before the board this evening and has been for over a month is, and I'll summarize, so give me poetic license. One is an office use. The other one would be a farm-to-table brewery and retail. And the third is a development partnership for catering and related public use. And all of the potential merits and drawbacks of each have been discussed, and the different potential possibilities have also been discussed. So at last week's village board, the village board meeting, the board had an opportunity to hear from citizens and business people as to their particular concerns and commitment, not only to this property, but I must add, on behalf of all, commitment to the village of Ossining. And I think that's very important, that we keep it positive and realize that although we may not all agree with every aspect of every proposal, we're all here because we're interested in the best interest and the ultimate success of the village of Ossining. However, I feel last week's meeting was quite constructive. We heard a lot of voices, and that this will hopefully be helpful as the board determines its course of conduct with respect to the proposals before them, or deems it appropriate to take such other actions in the ultimate best interest of the village with respect to this property. So I hope that was a non-biased. I wanted to just give a statement about the property so that people watching who are not as familiar might have an opportunity to know what's being spoken about. So with that, I'll turn it over to the mayor to continue the dialogue.
We, the four of us who were there last week, all of us believed that was the best board meeting we'd ever been to. That the quality of the comments, the passion behind the comments, the intellect behind the comments was extraordinary. And we encourage that to continue happening. This is one of several difficult decisions the board has to make, and we have to weigh a lot of different issues in making the decision, whether or not to go ahead at all, whether to go ahead with a developer who has shown the ability to go as far as the preferred developer status and then put some money into the project to see whether it's worth pursuing, or whether to go ahead with one of the others, or to send an RFP out and hope that we get some responses to it. RFPs are requests for proposals, have drawn, as Richard said, over the years, many different people with different kinds of proposals, and none of them have ever panned out. We did that also for the former DPW space along Main Street, Central Avenue, and Water Street. And each time we had some wonderful proposals, and the developers just walked away from them. We have, as John said last week, too much real estate. There are too many properties that are not on the tax rolls. It is a consideration we have. It's a serious consideration with the caps and the freezes and the diminution of tax leviability over the next several years. It's a very serious consideration. And we have to weigh whether that is, which element will take precedence, or all elements equal, or however we're going to approach this. It is, we took this week and
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Are you into the topic at this point, or are you still talking generally historics and
into the topic.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to recuse myself because my husband is
Thank you.
one of the partners in one of the considerations.
We took this week to study the notes that we took from last week's board meeting, and to see whether there were further comments, specifically from people who had not commented already. We have gotten other comments. In the farmers market, we got some more comments, which were terrific. An hour and a half ago, we got 2 more comments in emails. There have been comments in various places, websites on Facebook, sites on Facebook. Instructive, but it is ultimately we who must make this decision. So, John?
Yeah, I guess I wanted to start by just, thanking everybody for coming to the meeting last week. It was a great show of public participation, and I know for myself that the more we hear, the more we hear from the public, the better sense we have of things. Last week I felt very strongly that this is above all my interest here is to save the building. And although that may not be the highest and best use, a building that gets refurbished and saved will last for hundreds of years, and it will serve the purpose that we designated it when we wanted it to be an architectural treasure. And when you boil this all down to it, what the argument is that are we going to use the notion of a best possible use against a permitted use, for which an office space would be a permitted use. And I mean, I think I made it clear that I would certainly want to see the kind of business that has been proposed in the form of the brewery and everything else. The other issues that we have too are just, now we have a time compression here that regretfully creates some artificial boundaries for us. And part of it has to do with a company that we felt on the surface when we saw the proposals that came in June. When we looked at those three, we said, okay, well, for a term of phrase, who's closest to the money? What company can say, yes, we're ready to go, we've got the money, we've got a timeline, we've got all that stuff in place. And so for myself, when I have to look at all the things, there's the nice to have, and then there's the have to have. Because the last thing I would want to see is us roll the dice and gamble, and then find out that it sits there for 2 or 3 years in the building, because the building's rotting. It rots as we sit here now. Okay, and it's the gateway. I get that. But the gateway with a fallen down building in front of it, that's not good either. And unless I'm significantly convinced, I mean, this is about show me the money. I mean, I hate to put it into those terms, but that's where I've come. And I've talked to a lot of people, and I've talked to a lot of people that didn't come to the meeting either. But I have to represent all the interests of Ossining, including the people that want to do this proposal. I'm very conflicted about this. I wish we could find more time. I'm not prepared to decide what we're going to put on the agenda next week yet, because Bob Duraio's not here. Regretfully, he's hopefully recovering from a hospitalization. But that's my opinion about this now. That I am not in a place where I'm willing to roll the dice. Now, at the end of the day, when we talk about this preferred developer status, this does not commit us to execute any agreement with that company. Oceanic has come to us, and let me just back up for a sec for the Oceanic thing. One of the things that was most troubling to me was what I considered to be the demonization of a business that's been here in Ossining for 20 years. And there were statements that were made that I mean, I just think that sends a terrible message to anybody who would want to do business in Ossining. That is just wrong. Okay, so, I mean, what if Greenpeace wanted to come in? Would you feel differently about that? What if the NAACP wanted to have an office here? Would you feel differently about that? I just really feel that some of the public characterization of a legitimate business that wants to invest they said they wanted to put up $1 million. Now, whether that's the right number or not, that's a whole other conversation. But they were willing to make this an important part of their business and make it a headquarters for them. And I think you have to look at that. And as a trustee with a fiduciary responsibility, I have to consider that. And that's what I said last week. But the demonization of a business that wants to make that kind of proposal, I just think that's shameful. And I'm very disappointed of the way that came out. But, going back to the conversation, where I sit right now, I'd have to see something. I mean, we're going to do two things, okay? Either we're going to walk away from Oceanic, because we already put them off 2 weeks already. They want to be in that space in September, a year from September. They want to be in that space. So what everybody last week is asking me to do is walk away from something that's closer to anybody that we've had for over 10 years to do that, to take care of that property, or have a legitimate proposal. And we're not even obligated to them. So this is not an easy decision. And I am certainly conflicted. But I would like to think that we could get everything. But I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know if they'll go in there and they'll look at it and go, and they'll go, well, gee, you know, this is more that we want to spend, this is more that we want to do. I don't know. But after the 75 days, you know, other things can happen in 75 days. Other proposals could come in, other things could happen. You know, we're not obligated to sell the property to them during this. You know, we're put in a conversation with them. We're agreeing not to negotiate with another party for those 75 days. Am I correct about this? Okay, just so there's clarification. So the problem we have is we don't have time. And we have a very compressed situation here. So that's my thinking right now. And I'll leave it to the other board members to make their comments.
Just before I turn it over to Manuel, they have been in the building, as have, I believe, both of the other people who are interested in the building. And even having been in the building, they're willing to proceed and proceed in a rapid manner. Now, again, we have no commitment from them or from us in terms of a sale. We have a commitment only, if we do this, only to give them time for due diligence. But while they have that time, or before that time even, the phone calls to the principal of that corporation they have got to stop. The hostile phone calls from members of the community. Not only were there comments made that John referred to, but there have been phone calls since then. Fortunately, the principal is on vacation this week, so he is saved from having to listen to any more of them. But I hope everyone listening tonight, out on watching television on this, will understand that message. It is counterproductive. It hurts our ability as a village to proceed. It is the sort of thing that will chase away other people who want to use property here, because people don't live in a vacuum. Corporations exist amongst corporations and other companies, and the word will get out that the people of Ossining are hostile to corporations. It's not true. We're not hostile to corporations, but that's what will be heard. So that has to stop. Manuel?
About a week ago, it was raised. It was a very interesting meeting, one of the best meetings that I have ever been part of since I've been sitting in this chair. Since then, it was raised, we received a lot of emails, got a few phone calls here and there. A lot of them were positive, some of them negative. And when I'm talking about negative, some things were said to members of this board, name calling, phone calls, and I think that's a little bit too far and too childish, so to speak. We were elected to serve the people. We were elected to make decisions that will be best for the village, not for us, but for the village and to the public. And so far, we've been doing a pretty good job. This is one of the most difficult situations that I have, me personally, being put in right now. I was, like I mentioned last week, for the past year and a half, I've been trying to get something with my architectural connections, see if an architect will be willing to come in with restaurants, with different parts of that. I have worked with Ingrid on this. No one really has come in. People have come in, look at the building, just walk away. It was just too much money, too much risk. We did have 3 great proposals about a month ago. We made a decision at that time to go with one of them. We hold off last week. We want to hear, I think this meeting was to hear a lot more feedback that we've been hearing, I guess. One of the questions that I was raised, and this is comments that were made to one of the conversations that I had, including one of the meetings yesterday, was, and I guess this may be to Richard and Laura Lee, where what happens if we have let's say next week or 2 weeks after that, we go with the preferred developer, whoever that may be. What happens if another party wants to be in the building and wants to study the building? And what happens to that person? Can the board allow that other person or other parties to do the same process that the preferred developer is doing on their own without us agreeing to anything with them? Okay.
Preferred developer has.
The purpose of the preferred developer status is to provide a period of exclusivity for them to do their due diligence, which is private unto them and exclusive unto them. It's a right that otherwise it wouldn't make sense to establish a preferred developer if you were going to allow numerous proposals to be moving forward. It's quite an expensive process to do the due diligence and to start working toward a term sheet and a proposal of development, as you know from your architectural background. And there are significant amount of plans and engineering and testing and review of documents and phase one studies, and it's a very comprehensive look, and you would only undertake that as a business decision if you had a period of exclusivity in order to do that.
Okay. That was something that was asked to me, and I didn't want to give an answer without being in this forum, so there can be a clarification in that regards. It hurts because I think it was expressed even last week, and now we would like to see something that will serve the public. Someone that 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, I go out, either have a beer, have a sandwich, look at the building, sit down, look at the window, look at the downtown. That's what I think everybody wants to see. Unfortunately, at this point of time, it doesn't seem that feasible. I don't know. So that's something that, it's one of the hardest decisions I think the board will have to take, regardless of what the outcome is. And that's something that, we need to discuss. And, we keep getting this feedback, which is great. I love reading those emails on my lunch hour. I get like at least 4 or 5 emails. That's my whole hour. So I keep reading. So it's great. Some of them. I don't know if is this forum appropriate to open to the public as well? Do we hear any?
I think it's appropriate to open to any voices that have not already been heard on the subject. We've already heard from most of the people in the room. But yes.
If I may.
Yes, microphone.
Thank you. My name is Alex Jeffrey. I represent Sing Sing Kill Brewery, who did present to the board and did make a presentation for preferred developer status about a month ago. However, at that time, and I believe we mentioned at the meeting that Mr. Vincent Sultana, who is the real estate development and financial investing arm of our entity, was out of town on business and was unable to attend. I hear everything that you guys are saying and respect that this is a very difficult decision. And Mr. Sultana is here this evening, and we would request that the board indulge us to allow him to make a very brief statement as to the financial viability of Sing Sing Kill Brewery, which would provide the board, we believe, with information that's not currently in its possession for the purposes of transparency and to allow you to make a more informed decision with regard to the preferred development status. We'd ask if you would hear from Mr. Sultana.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
thank you.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
I had a bunch of prepared statements, but I'm not going to even look at that. I'm just going to comment and maybe just start off from what John said, if I can call you John. You said, show me the money, right? So a little background of what I do. I'm a real estate asset manager. I manage about 500,000 square feet of New York City real estate, retail. I know retail very well. I also used to live in Ossining. I used to own a multifamily community right down here on Highland. I lived in Ossining for about 8 years. When Eric approached me, I don't know, a couple of months ago, and he said he had this idea for a brewery at 200 Main Street, and he started describing the building, and I said, oh yeah, I know that building. I know that building. Beautiful building, has some difficulties. What's your concept? And the more I got into it, the more I realized that it was a very viable concept. The other component of what I do is real estate syndication. The firm that I work for is a fourth-generation real estate family, specializes in syndication. They syndicated the Empire State Building. 3,000 investors came up with about $10,000 each, and they purchased the building. It took 14 months to build the building and a little bit more time to raise the money to buy it in 1964. We've had some preliminary soft discussions with potential investors. We have done projections on the building. We've looked at cost. And we project essentially about a 12% return, IRR return, to investors. We have preliminary commitments of about $500,000. Me being in the real estate business in New York City, I have access to a number of retailers that I trust their opinion, one of which is a company called Sidebar. They own several pubs and restaurants. They have the concession at the Meadowlands Raceway, which seats 2,000 people. And the principal, as a favor to me, recently came up and drove by the building. He told me he was going to do this, and I got an email from him, and he said, wow, fantastic building. Do you have any investors? So I have a high degree, again, confidence that we'll be able to raise the money. It's a matter of locking on to the location, because as you say, it is a significant commitment. There are expenses involved, much of which will be funded from our personal pockets to begin with. So there's a commitment there. And I respect the fact that as fiduciaries, you have a difficult decision to make. I live in Mount Kisco today. I'm a volunteer on the Real Estate Tax Assessment Board. I know all about taxes. Okay? Here's what I also know. I know that an office use commands anywhere from 33 to 50% on an assessment basis versus a retail use. It's just simple economics. Your future for that building is better as a retail use. It simply is. And you've had the building for 10 years, but things are very different. You have a demographic shift in Ossining today. You have multiple dwelling units being developed. You have a socioeconomic shift in terms of the populace. This is not the Ossining that was 10 years ago when I was a resident. It's very different. And when you combine all those things, I really think that you have a unique opportunity to keep that building as retail, whether or not it's Sing Kill Brewery. The office use to me, any office use for that matter, is just non-accretive to Main Street. We talk about anchors in retail. If you have a shopping center and you don't have an anchor, what you have is a bunch of vacant stores. You need a driver. And that building has an opportunity to be a driver of traffic and to help other businesses along that street. So that's really all I wanted to say. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer it.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you.
Is there anyone else who hasn't spoken on the issue? Okay. I think the board will go into executive session this evening and then come back into legislative session after we have met briefly on our own. We can do that now.
Well, I have to say that I'm not prepared to vote on this right now.
Yeah, I know. You've already said that.
Not without Bob here, so.
You've already said that. So we don't need an executive session?
I think we can have an executive session at the end of the work session
Okay.
to go, but
All right, we can do that.
yeah, but that's pretty much it.
Richard?
To the next item, so we're okay, thanks. The next item is a sort of a beginning of a reopening of a topic that comes up periodically, and a lot of work has been done here in the village, but we want to pursue it further, and that is to discuss some of the opening opportunities dealing with municipal energy efficiency for our buildings, potential audits, the improvements, and also our ancillary services, possible examination of our fire departments and other ancillaries to the Village of Ossining. So I'll turn it over to Trustee Codman.
Okay. Yeah, I asked that this be put on the agenda because I've had a number of conversations with the fire chief, and having reviewed this year's energy expenses to date, it's pretty clear that we're going to go over budget. It was a very cold beginning of the year.
Just the fire department. It's
Well,
not clear that the whole village.
Well,
will go
but
up.
I'm just saying that based on my observation from the fire department, that we, we're going to have a tough time staying within the budget, and if we do stay within the budget, we're going to have to, we're going to have to take away from something else, and that's not something I like to see in the fire department. So the net is that. I know that that through some interactions with Trustee Garrity, we've tried to look and see if we could get some grant money and some stuff like that, but apparently municipal buildings and even buildings of a fire department type, even though we've got a couple of the structures are not actually owned by the village. We have two fire buildings that are lease arrangements. We may be able to get some money for them because they've got a nonprofit status, but that still leaves 5 other structures. And what I did was I reached out to the company that did the energy audits for my home through the Energize program, which is Bright Home. And not only do they do residential, but they also do commercial buildings and other things of that nature. And I basically kind of threw out a straw man. I said, hey, the fellow's name's Tom Brown, who's very passionate. I mean, he's a scientist. I mean, that's the way he looks at this. And he said, yeah, it'd be worth talking to him. So what I wanted to do was discuss the notion of the board investing in these energy audits. I have no idea what it would cost. I was hoping that by aggregating all of these energy audits into one, that we could get some cost efficiency, and that usually the results of these audits are that there's some low-hanging fruit. There's some things that would be low expense, and then obviously you look at other maybe more serious and other investments you could make in these structures so that we could make them more energy efficient and obviously do all the things that the Energize program is about, which is more energy efficiency, lower carbon footprint, more comfort, just better overall. So I wanted to bring this to the work session to talk about that and kind of get consensus from everybody, if everybody's comfortable with that. I mean, obviously, given the amount of money that it is, what dollar amount we're talking about, we'd have to look into, obviously, what it would cost and what the contract amount is and whether we'd have to put it out for bid, those kinds of things. But I am going to meet with Tom tomorrow, and we're going to go look at a couple firehouses just to do a walkthrough. I mean, it's purely a speculative thing for him to check it out, and he would give me a sense of what that would cost. Now, that being said, I'm also very interested to know what we're doing. We have 3 large, office centers in the village. We've got this building here. We've got obviously we've got the court building and the police department, and then we've got the operations center out there. And obviously we want to be able to understand where we are with that. In addition to this, I also feel that we really need to redouble our efforts with respect to streetlights. I think a conversion to LED streetlights would be critical. I mean, the little thing that Henry's doing in the gymnasium, I mean, the payback is a year and a half. And I mean, we spend a lot of money with NYPA. And I just feel like we need to look at every opportunity for us to lower our energy costs, because energy is only going to cost more. I mean, that's the reality of it. I mean, energy prices are only going up, and we're also going to be experiencing a tremendous amount of compression from a revenue perspective and our ability to spend money because of the budget tightening and the 2% cap. So I really feel it's critical that we work on this and move forward with this in the next 6 months. I just think between now and the end of the year, we got to get our act together. I really would like to see these audits get done. I'd really like to get understanding where we are. Obviously, sooner the better, because we're going to be moving into the budget period. And, I mean, if we have some monies in contingency, I believe this would be money well spent to help either do the audits themselves or even do, minor, as I said, low-hanging fruit from a cost perspective in terms of that. So those are my thoughts. Obviously, there's a lot of folks that are part of the management team, part of Richard's team, that would have to look at this, obviously. I'd mentioned this to Paul about the street lights, but it's something that I really feel it needs to be a priority with the board, given the financial pressure and just given the overall, I think, desire of this board to be energy conscious and think about the planet.
I think,
So-
John, you've done a masterful presentation. I don't think you have any argument from anyone on the board
Well,
except Manny, who only wants to spend $75.
Right.
But,
78 right now.
oh,
So,
we're up, we're up.
yeah,
It's possible.
yeah, we are.
It's $3, but
Um,
well, I feel it's important.
Victoria and I have both been involved in,
Yeah.
the Northern Westchester Energy Action Consortium, now called Sustainable Westchester, and soon to be merging with the Southern Westchester Energy Action Consortium.
Stealing my thunder, Bill.
Sorry. But we've both been involved, and I know Manuel is involved in architectural issues, and the movement in architecture, domestic and otherwise, is towards.
Correct. A lot of exactly. A lot of the buildings actually are being
I'm going to take my jacket
they're
off.
being facilitated. They've been trying to go LEED certified as much as they can get. I guess I said, Pro Victoria and Bill may have an answer for this. For a small residential, sometimes I get letters from Con Ed saying, we go into your house, we do this kind of stuff, we change the light bulbs, save you some energy. And I'm not sure how much this audited will be, but I think Con Ed does it for free, I believe. So that's what
Well, but the energy audits that
No,
that
I-
Con Ed do,
of
I mean,
course.
it's more
It's more-
observational. It's
Correct.
not the thing
Correct.
that I love about Bright Home is that
Correct.
they go around, they do the blower door test, they suck the air out, they find all the places
That's,
where things are coming
that
in.
was my question.
Yeah.
That was what I wanted
Yeah.
to hear from you, because that's what the vacuum of the house is all about.
Yeah.
That was actually one of the impetuses of the Energize Ossining program, the Energize New York program, because Con Ed does do it for free, but they only do
This
a very
minimum, so-
minor element
Yeah.
of it, and there are so many others.
So that's why I wanted for you to get that detail out.
Yeah, I mean, it's, my understanding is they would do a commercial building the same they would do, be the same
Okay.
process, the same methodology that they would do a residential home. They would provide the
So
same.
when they did it, when this program, is that still free? The audited for portion for residential? Was it ever? So
It's always been free.
it's always been free.
Residential.
For residential.
As long as your income is below a certain level, which most of Ossining falls into, thankfully.
Okay.
For that purpose, anyway.
All right. So for municipal, we'll have to lower our salaries than
different.
everybody else.
That it's,
No,
it's,
that
it's
doesn't
different,
work.
different.
We'll lower yours. So, we've already dealt with Dale.
Yeah.
We will lower yours.
All right. So I guess, how does the process have this been done for a commercial type situation?
Yeah, so the Energize program that has the free or very reduced cost for the energy efficiency assessment that John has so much experience with and has spoken about, that is a residential program. There are other programs that, as John alluded to, that perhaps nonprofits or corporations can take advantage of, which have other funding opportunities. When it comes to municipalities, it's a little different, and I was going to ask Richard to speak to. It's my understanding, and Tom Warren might know the person that we connect with, I think, with NYPA, because we're NYPA customers. They have sort of their own version, which So I'd be very interested to hear what Tom from Bright Home says, if he's able to give us some sort of cost estimate of what would be the assessment just up front, and then only then will we make our decisions about, just like he did for John's home and Bob's home and Lori Lee's home, everybody who had people done. You get a very detailed report, and it says you can do these 20 things. If you do this one, this will be how long it takes to pay it off, and what the rate of return will be, and then you pick and choose the ones that you want, the low-hanging fruit that he was talking about. It's my understanding for the NIPA program that it's still an excellent program, and we could take advantage of a lot of funding sources or financing that would make it perhaps a cost-effective way to do it up front. But there's one person that you go with. There's a very concrete path that you have to follow that we looked into when you did a couple of single projects. And then before I stop talking, I'll just say, you said you reached out to Paul about the LED streetlights, because I know he attended a program that was put out by the Southern Westchester Energy Action Consortium. And so, okay. So.
I mean, he knows I'm in the hunt, so I guess I want to just kind of raise the level of urgency.
Yeah, I think
around this. I just feel like it's something that we need to do, and I just wanted to get consensus here. I didn't think anybody would be in opposition.
Right. No.
But I want to make a formal, discussion of it and make it something that we would consider, and that we would, really express as a policy, to Richard, so he understands this is important to us, and we all feel this is important and want to do it.
Right. I will say I like that you're pushing this forward, and if I don't know how much of a concrete estimate Paul has, or if he can help us get an idea of if we want to include that in the budget, then that really is something that I would love to see in the next year's budget, and it's a very tangible thing.
Well, even in this year's budget.
So if I can start with last first, I've been talking to Paul, and we've been moving sort of ahead on that. He's already made contact with someone who did work in New Rochelle, I think in Yonkers, and it was a very successful program. So the first part of that is for them to actually do an inventory of the lights that you have, so that you can make sure that you're paying the proper billing before you go ahead and get pricing for fixtures and whatnot. So we're working on that. We're probably going to meet next week, and then we'll hope to bring it back to a work session shortly. Okay. But that'll be the first. So we were already focusing on that. In terms of the village buildings, you know that we looked at a number of these things before. I don't think we did a complete audit, as you described, as we discussed in email, looking at windows and insulation. They did look at the boiler, I think, in this building, and I think there were like a number of options, and the ones that were chosen were found to be the most cost-effective. But, certainly can we look at them again? We can, when Valley gets back, we'll catch up with NIPA and see what they have available. I think that's the best thing to do. And the third thing, of course, the fire department, it's a valid observation. Yeah, we're paying a lot of the expenses. We just have to figure out how that works to spend money on an out ancillary source and whatever. So.
Well, obviously, the buildings that are owned by the not-for-profit, I would need to research whether it would even be possible for the village to undertake the cost of such an audit, because it's owned by a not-for-profit corporation specifically. So it could be that we would need to determine on a case-by-case basis. I'm unclear as to the current status of the law, and I'd be happy to take a look at it based upon the discussion this evening.
Okay. All right.
I just wanted to clarify, you had mentioned, I know when we emailed, we talked about looking at some of the old reports, and it was my understanding we hadn't ever, whatever reports had been done, hadn't included this building either, so going forward, there probably need to be more.
Yeah, no, that's what I was agreeing with you.
Okay.
I don't have access to all those reports because the people that have them are not around this week, but my recollection is the same as yours. I don't think the whole nuts and bolts was done, so it'd be good to look at the whole thing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. So is it my understanding that we're going to table the item on the Staples issue and whatnot? Okay. So if I can turn it back to the mayor for trustee liaison reports.
Well, we've already started talking about Sustainable Westchester, so Victoria, why don't you lead?
Sure. So we've talked a lot about sustainability, and as Mayor Hanauer mentioned, we have exciting news. After many, many months of biweekly meetings with myself and about 10 other people from Northern and Southern Westchester Energy Action Consortiums, we have officially, thank you New York State for pushing forward the paperwork, become Sustainable Westchester, which means we have the entire county that we can draw on for resources of intellectual capital, and the programming can be that much more robust to serve all of the member communities. And we have, and just as we were talking about today, like the LED street lighting program is a program that was pushed forth by that organization. There are a lot of programs out there that can serve our community in a way that we just, as a single municipality, couldn't possibly devote the manpower to have that amount of expertise on efficiency and sustainability programs that really can save us a lot of money as a municipality. So I'm very pleased that that's moving forward in a big way. And I will also mention another organization that is really a terrific program in our community is CTC, Communities That Care. And if you are online, you may have seen that there's a new schedule out. If you have any children who are from the ages of 11 to 14, sort of that middle school age, there are a lot of really terrific programs. That's a tough age. They're often not working, but can benefit from structured programming. And CTC has partnered with the library, the Elks Club, the police department, and Parks and Rec to have a really exciting list of offerings. So I encourage you to look up communitiesthatcare.org, I believe is the website. And the one other thing that I would give a plug to is we've posted in the web blast, but once things kind of sit on the web blast for a while, I'm afraid that they don't have the same punch and visibility. We are looking for one more person to apply to be on the Landlord-Tenant Relations Council. It's a group of citizens who are appointed by the board to help community members, whether they are landlords or tenants, to be sure that everyone feels that they're being treated fairly and help mediate disputes, and also to just have a better sense of what the housing status is in our community. And we would very much like to have a native Spanish speaker in the group. We do have one person who is bilingual, and that's very helpful. But we have a community that has a lot of Spanish speakers, and so particularly anybody who is fluent in Spanish, we would encourage them to apply. And that's for the Landlord-Tenant Relations Council. And you can send your letters of interest and or resume to Christina Papes, our Assistant Village Manager, cpapes@villageofossining.org. You can call for more information at 914-941-3554. Thanks.
So do you know if that's a landlord or a tenant, or if it's a neutral?
Oh, thank you for asking. It's a tenant.
Okay, great.
It's a tenant. That's very important. Yeah, it's a group of 7 members, 3 landlords, 3 tenants, and 1 neither landlord nor tenant. So, thank you.
Manuel?
Not much. The HPC has been reviewing some applications. Not much. The HPC has been reviewing some applications. The last one, it was this past Monday, 134 State Street. I guess it was adjourned. They're still doing some revisions. That's the project in Broad Avenue and State Street. Even though they've been doing some great changes and working with the Historic Conservation Commission, I think there's a little more tweaking to go, but I think they've been doing pretty good. Besides that, I don't have any other reports. Actually, yes and no. One of the new committees, the Downtown Event Committee, actually their first meeting was today here at 7 o'clock, so I'm not sure how that one goes because we had another meeting here today at the same time. So I will ask our downtown manager to give us a report and probably report that to you guys next time. But it's a great, energetic group of people that I think they have a full agenda already. So I think a lot of exciting things are going to be happening pretty soon. So stay tuned for that. And I'm not sure if you think I can do this.
You sure? You sure? It's going to be on the agenda next week, sure?
So July 16, we have a regular meeting at the courthouse. We actually we are very proud to have hired a new police officer. Her name is Michelle Matsoki. Thank Thank you. So she's gonna be pretty one of the new members of our police department, and it was a tough decision for mainly for the police department to the board to make, and for the liaison as well. But I think she's gonna be a great asset to our police department. So come and join us. Welcome her to be part of Ossining. She's a local person. Obviously. So yeah, so next week, July 16, 7:30, we're going to do the first thing. So, yeah, and that's pretty much it.
We had a very large list of people who did well on the civil service exam for police, and it was a local list, 20-some-odd people on the list. Many of them were interviewed. Manuel and I attended many of the interviews. I missed one, I think, and
yeah, we had like 11 interviews, I think. Yeah, 11 interviews.
And I got excited when I met this young woman. She is very dynamic, has great training, great educational background, and a sense of humor, which is very important for police. And she has interned with the police, not recently, but fairly recently.
I don't think she did. I think it was
The other,
the other person. Yeah.
But she's currently working as a corrections officer in the Westchester County jail system. So she actually understands a great deal of what we expect from an officer and need from an officer. So I think this is going to be wonderful swearing in. One of the things that Manuel and I were made important in the process was that we consider women and diversity in our police department. Our department is very diverse at present, and it's getting more so by hiring yet another woman. And this was very good, so come next week for that. John?
Yeah, I think I kind of covered everything. I mean, the only other thing I'd want to mention is August 1st is the Friday, right? That's the first Friday in August. That is the Ossining Fireman's Parade, and it's a great event, and it goes right down Croton Avenue, all the way down, through the center of town, and it's a wonderful event, culminating in the waterfront, and so enjoy it. It's going to be great.
So the reviewing stand is opposite the post office, so a lot of people gather around there. But it's really fun. It's a great deal of fun. There are many different departments from other communities who show up. Do you know how many this year?
I haven't gotten the list from next work session. I'll get a count from the chief. He'll let me know. But, usually we get 30 or 40 departments.
Right,
so
and for the 200th anniversary, we had almost 80 departments.
That's right. We had a lot. Yeah, well, that way.
Plus ambulances.
We overdid it, but that's okay. You can't have enough fire trucks, so we can tight.
Well, I have a couple of things. Last week, Senator Schumer, all of a sudden, announced a press conference to support the Sing Sing Prison Museum project, which is very exciting because we had put out requests for grants from the Regional Economic Development Council, and we have been trying to raise, we have the fundraiser, we've been trying to raise private money, we've attempted to get the county involved again. His press conference really paid off. Plus, my hat goes off to Jerry Fiala, who is the executive director of Historic Hudson River Towns, who put together the request for a grant or a series of grants, a priority listing and a priority grant, and then a series of grants over a number of years, so we'll have to continue to request them. But today it was announced that the Regional Economic Development Council listed us as a priority, which is an astounding thing because it's encouraging us that we will get that first round of grants and that we will, over the next several years, end up with a museum. It's very exciting that these two things have happened. We've got terrific press, including Phil Reisman's column in the Journal News, and there was a television piece on News 12. So it's very encouraging that for the village, because one of the main foci of this project is economic development. If we have that museum built, we will have hundreds of thousands of visitors having lunch, dinner, wandering around the streets, buying things. This is a very exciting thing. It'll take 4 to 5 years, maybe a little more, maybe less, but we're on our way. The other thing is I went to an interesting meeting last night of an organization called Community Voices Heard. It's not the first meeting I've been to. It's a county-wide, it's actually larger than Westchester County, but not much, and it's focused on Westchester County, essentially the majority of the people are minority people in the community who have issues that they would like to propose to the village board. Some of them have great validity, some of them are sketchy and need to be fleshed out, and they have now put a subcommittee together to flesh out those things, and they're going to want to speak to each of us individually and ultimately as a group and make some presentations. My hat's off to what's her first name? Solo. I told you it was the woman who ran the thing last night, and yeah, well, she did a good job. It was last night was a training session. It was Civics 101. How does the government work? How do the different layers of government work with each other? So stay tuned. This is going to get exciting in the fall.
Okay, great. Can we have a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of obtaining legal advice on a pending legal matter and potentially discussing real estate with counsel?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That ends the televised portion of this evening's work session. Please do join us at the waterfront on Friday for the music and the fireworks and the food and the fun. Have a good weekend. Be very careful about this hot weather. It's very bad. Make sure everybody you know has plenty of water, and be very careful on the roads. People are partying this week, so be very, very careful on the roads. And we'll see you next week at the legislative session on Wednesday at 7:30 at the courthouse. Good night.